first forum of this year, and Jed Sneed will tell you more about our guests, and we'll introduce him. I just want to tell you some of the things that we will have going on at Food Makers for the next 3 months. The next forum, which is for Black History Month, will be an afternoon with local authors. So what we've done is we've put together a number of black authors in Rochester who will have them here. They'll have their books. They'll tell you a little about themselves and how they got started. And we felt that this was something that we needed to do for Black History Month, to recognize the number of writers that are in Rochester. And you would be surprised at the number of black authors. Then later on in the year, we will do another woman's poetry night like we did last year. We will also be doing this year an evening of one-act plays. And later on, I will, sometime in September, hopefully, I will be introducing the book that I'm writing.
Hey, hey, there you go.
So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Randy.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Randy.
I am really pleased and honored to be in the company of you great people. I'm sure all you bring your own experiences here today, but today we're here for Mr. McCulley's experience, and I just want to share a little bit about the Fourth Saturday Vision Forum. The Fourth Saturday Vision Forum provides for our community stakeholders to expose a cross-section of our community to significant ideas and issues. The purpose is to encourage individuals, institutions, and organizations to share their visions for a better community. In your seat, when you sat down, you'll find that there was a survey that we did. It's called the Survey Participant. So if you will, fill that out at your leisure, and we have a gift for all those that fill it out. So when the session is over, just hand it over to me, and I'll exchange it for your gift. Okay? At this time, I'd like to give it over to Jed Sneed. Thank you.
I got the easy part. How's everybody doing? All I got to do is read a bio. So we welcome you all to Move Makers, and we're glad to see you. Our guest today is Dwayne McCulley, a local engineer, overcame a diabetic coma, a blood sugar of 1337, 2 blood clots, and 4 insulin shots a day by using his engineering and biochemistry background to repair his body and wean himself off the insulin. After 3 years, he is still drug-free with his blood glucose level in the normal range and continues to share his story with local churches and other community groups. Dwayne grew up in Farrell, Pennsylvania as the eldest son of Malcolm and Minnie McCulley, along with his 7 brothers and sisters. Dwayne believes that he was fortunate to have had strong parents, a supporting church with a strong pastor, and great teachers in high school and college. Dwayne attended the Pennsylvania State University, where he graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in electrical engineering. Dwayne currently works as an engineer for a Fortune 500 company in Rochester, New York, and volunteers as a community health advocate, providing presentations to families, churches, wellness forums, and other community groups about diabetes, heart disease, and nutrition. He's been a guest speaker on the local radio show Health Talk, hosted by Dr. DePrima, and has been featured in www.blacknews.com and various newspapers in Jackson, Mississippi, and Grand Rapids, Michigan. Please give a warm welcome to our guest today, Dwayne McCulley.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
One of the questions that a lot of people always ask me is, Dwayne, what does an engineer know about nutrition? What does an engineer know about diabetes? Well, nothing really. But 3.5 years ago, as Jed mentioned, I went into a diabetic coma, and in the coma, I'm not sure of everything that happened, so I have to kind of relay information to you based on what my daughter and my mother told me. Basically, the prognosis from the doctors when they talked to my mother was that I would not make it, and that she should begin making arrangements for my demise. But my mother was a very religious person, and she said, well, okay, you do what you have to do. I'll be talking to God. It's not time for my son to go. And so obviously my mother must have some connection, because so here I stand. When I got out of the hospital after days, I was required to take 4 insulin shots a day to try to keep my blood sugar. The objective was try to get my blood sugar below 300. That was the prime objective. And to basically slow down the acceleration of the disease. I had a specific type of type 2 diabetes, and I'll never forget this. When the doctor came in and I was out of the coma, he said, yeah, Dwayne, you have a specific type of type 2, and it's an accelerated form, and I'm still kind of groggy trying to figure out, okay, am I alive, or where are we? Are we in heaven, hell? You know exactly where are we? She's talking. And so it says you have a non-ketotic, hyperglycemic, hyperosmolar coma. And I'm going, it took me 3 days to learn how to say that, by the way. And I said, exactly what does that mean? Well, Dwayne, according to the Merck Medical Reference Manual, your mortality, it's a 97% probability that you should have died. And because you had deep vein thrombosis, hypertriglyceridemia, and a couple other complications, names I can't remember, I should have died 3 times over. So I said, okay, so am I cured? Am I okay now? And they said, well, Dwayne, there's no cure for diabetes. You'll have to watch what you eat and inject yourself with insulin 4 times a day. And I said, well, inject? See, I'm afraid of needles. I said, inject? Who's going to inject? Well, Dwayne, it's you. And I said, no, there must be another option. They said, oh yeah, we can have a home nurse come by, because at the time I was on disability, so I was at home with my mother and daughter who would come up and take care of me, and my sister. And they said, we can have a home nurse come by 4 times a day to give you an injection. I said, oh yeah, thank you. Because even when I go on for blood, you know, where to take your blood, I look the other way. Because I can't. Yeah. And they said, yeah, we can arrange that. I said, oh, thank you. They said, well, Dwayne, your insurance won't take care of that. I said, I got top-of-the-line insurance. They said, yeah, top-of-the-line insurance doesn't take care of a nurse coming to your house 4 times a day. And I said, well, I'm thinking maybe, 10, 15 bucks a day. That's okay. And I said, well, how much? They said, well, $100. I said, yeah, I can handle $100 a day. They said, no, yeah, $100 a visit, $400 a day, $2,800 a week. I make pretty good money as an engineer, people. I make, but not that good. So I learned how to take that needle, and I would shake, and I learned how to do it 4 times a day. And the irony is, because of the seriousness of my diabetes, they could not put me on glucophage or any of the other oral drugs. But as it turned out, that was a blessing. Because if I had started taking the pill, I would have gotten comfortable. But because I was injecting myself 4 times a day, and every time I had to prepare for the injection, I'd break out into a cold sweat and build up the courage, and I would pray that I wouldn't, stick it where it ain't supposed to go. And I said, man, and then after you do it, then I spent the next 3 or 4 hours dreading the next injection. And I thought, man, 4 times a day, I gotta go do this. And you try to be courageous. My daughter's there, and but it's hard being courageous when you're afraid of needles. And so I said, man, it's gotta be a better way. It's gotta be a better way. And my mother actually showed me the way. I fought it initially, but if you knew my mother, you realize you can't fight her. You will lose every time. And the first thing she did is she took my Breyer's ice cream. Anybody here? Breyer's ice cream is rich ice cream, and it's expensive. All right? And of course, I buy 7 half gallon. I keep 7, for backup. And so my mother looked in the freezer and saw, 7 half gallons of Breyer's ice cream with I had some frozen brownies, and, chocolate chip cookies, and my Mrs. Smith apple pie. I had 12 of those. And my mother looked in the freezer. Oh my God! And I'm thinking, Mom, what's wrong? I thought maybe the freezer isn't working. And she goes, boy, I know I raised you better than this. And so she's taking out the ice cream. I said, Mom, I'm not going to eat ice cream right now. She goes, I know, because you're never going to be eating ice cream again. She took the ice cream. You have to understand something. She took all 7 and put it in the sink. Oh, it's going to melt. I said, that's the idea. And now, she could have just went and put them in the toilet, but she put them in the sink for the next 7.5 hours. I watched the ice cream melt. I tried to sneak one back in. I tried to save the last one, and but my mother, she has eyes in the back of her head. I know she does, and she's in the other part of the house. Okay, boy, I know you're in there. Leave it alone. And so that was part of it. And my mother prepared. She was teaching me, how to cook food and stuff like that. And I'm on time food, my job, I travel. She says, well, boy, I'm going to teach you I taught you how to eat when you were growing up, and I'm going to teach you again. So she prepared Brussels sprouts, and she put them in these little plastic Tupperware containers, and it's like 20 of these things, and my refrigerator is just green, everything green. And I said, Mom, I hate Brussels sprouts. And she just smiled. Yes, too bad. And I did everything I could not to eat them Brussels sprouts. Now, here's where one of the accidents or blessings occurred. After my mother left, went back home, and of course, see, I've never told her this, but as they were leaving, I love my mother. I love my daughter. I love my sister. But 3 women running my household, it's time to go. Oh, yeah, sorry, you gotta go. And I'm thinking, okay, now I can do what I want. And, but anyhow, the following morning, I woke up and I was a little dizzy, a little weak. I went downstairs to prepare my favorite cereal. I have 2 favorite cereals, Cheerios and Rice Krispies. And they were both empty. I'm thinking, oh yeah, my daughter, she likes Cheerios. My mother likes Rice Krispies. They ate up all the cereal and didn't tell me. So I think I gotta have something. I'm looking at the refrigerator, Brussels sprouts. Took them out, put them in there, nipped them in the microwave, ate the Brussels sprouts. 2 hours later, as was part of my process, I measured my blood sugar. For the first time, my blood sugar actually went down 10 points. And I went, ooh, because normally, in my case, it goes up. And I said, ooh, it didn't go up. And not only did it not, it went down. Ooh, I called my doctor. I called the endocrinologist. And the endocrinologist, oh, Dwayne, that's an anomaly. There's a correlation between that food and your blood sugar coming down. Now, anybody here know anything about an engineer? Okay, I'm thinking I got a data point. I want to try this one more time. So I tried Brussels sprouts for my mid-morning snack. Went to test, and again, blood sugar came down. It only came down 5 points, but that still came down. So, lunch, mid-afternoon snack, dinner, I ate Brussels sprouts. 7 days later, my blood sugar level was down to 200, which I thought was good, because the target was 300. And I wanted to dance, but I don't know how to dance. And possible. You're probably doing something wrong. You need to go back and retest. So I went back to test, but no, the number looks good. And so I asked my doctor, okay, yeah, what's normal? What's the normal range for a non-diabetic? Oh, yeah. Well, Dwayne, I don't think you should worry about that. We just got to try to keep you in the 180 to 220 range with the insulin. And I said, yeah, but what is the normal range? And he said, well, Dwayne, there's no need for you. I said, could you just tell me the number? The endocrinologist wouldn't tell me. My doctor told me, my primary care physician said, Dwayne, it's 80 to 120. I said, oh, okay. He said, why do you want to know that? I said, that's my target. And he said, okay, Dwayne, that's good. And my doctor was always very supportive. He and the endocrinologist did not see eye to eye. And so I continued with the Brussels sprouts. After 9 days, of course, I got tired of Brussels sprouts, but every day it kept coming down. I didn't want to, break that streak. So I decided I'll try something green, something I can stand. Oh, broccoli. So then I tried broccoli for maybe 6 or 7 days, got tired of that real fast. And then I moved to spinach. Long story short, 3.5 months later, well, actually within a month and a half, I had my blood sugar back to normal. And at that time, I said, well, I'm back to normal on insulin. What if I now start to reduce my insulin dosage? And of course, the endocrinologist said, well, Dwayne, it's going to go back up. I said, okay, I'm thinking, well, he was wrong before. And I'm thinking, okay, what I got to do? I'll give it one shot. And what I'm taking, understand, 4 injections, 60 units a day. So I'm thinking, if I go from 60 to 59, is that really going to make that much of a difference? And he said it would. So I went to 59, didn't go up. So I went to 58, 57, 56. See, engineers, we can count backwards. And that took about another 2.5 months. So it took a total of about 3.5 months before I was down to 0 injections and 0 dosage. My endocrinologist said I'm in denial. He said, Dwayne, you will go back into a diabetic coma. You can't get rid of the disease. You're in denial. And I'll never forget this when I left his office because he was kind of screaming at me a little bit. Dwayne, you cannot stop taking the insulin. And I had the data. I had my spreadsheet. I had my Excel spreadsheet with the data points, correlating the data to, I'm going, but look at the data. He goes, Dwayne, I've been treating diabetics for 26 years. You only had the disease for a couple of months, and you're going to tell me you're now an expert? No, but look at the data. Dwayne, you're just one person. I said, yeah, and I'm the one with the disease. He said, Dwayne, I've been treating diabetics for 26 years. I said, I heard that. Could you help me here? How many of those diabetics got better? And now he got upset with me. He said, Dwayne, that's not a fair question because there's no cure for diabetes. I said, but could you give me the answer? He goes, well. I said, oh, okay. He never gave me. He just said, well. I said, so no one ever got better? He goes, Dwayne, the disease is a progressive, deteriorating disease, and you will never be healthier than you are today. That's the reality. And he said, if you go off the drugs, the disease will accelerate further. And of course, at that time, I was also dealing with problems with my legs, and he was trying to convince me that I should consider having my toes amputated. And not all the toes. He said toes, and I said, well, toes or toe? He said the toes, but he said, but not all of them. Well, I don't want to lose any of them. And he said, well, Dwayne, but if you don't, get rid of the toes, then we'll have to remove your feet. And if we don't remove your feet, then it's the legs. Because in your case, Dwayne, the degrees is so progressive that your timeline is different than for a typical diabetic, where it takes 25 years. So when I left the office, I sat in my car and I cried. I was shaking and I was crying because this was an expert that was telling me that despite the evidence that things were not going to get better, in fact, they were going to get worse, and that I would have to go back on insulin. And this voice said, no, continue with what you're doing. And so I continued. And when I called him and said I'm off the insulin, and my average blood sugar level is 88.5, and he said, well, Dwayne, that doesn't really mean anything because you can fake. Anyone here who's a diabetic, you can't fake your blood sugar reading by not eating for 12 hours. And that's what he thought I was doing. And so he said, Dwayne, you have to come in and get lab work done, to get your hemoglobin A1C measured. He says, so I can show you that you're living in a fantasy world. And so I went in for the testing, and so there's a test called the hemoglobin A1C. This particular test measures the percentage of blood sugar attached to your red blood cells. You can't fake this test. For a non-diabetic, the range is somewhere between 4.4 to, let's say, 5.2%. Diabetics that are controlling their diabetes, somewhere around maybe 7%. Doctor came in and had the paperwork there, and he said, yeah, Dwayne, we got to retest you. Oh man, I'm thinking it must be bad. I said, well, what's the number? Well, it's 4.4%. No, I knew that was a good number. I said, that's a good number. We don't need to retest. It's a good number. He goes, Dwayne, well, we must have made a mistake because this is not possible. They said, even if you were diabetic, trying to get your hemoglobin A1C down to 4.4%, that's impossible. So we must have made a mistake. So we're going to have to retest you. You have to go back to the lab and get retested. So that took about another month or so, because I was depressed for 2 weeks. Because I didn't want to get retested, because I liked the good news. And I really didn't want to find out the truth. So anyhow, they retested me and came back in a month later. And the doctor comes in, and he's shaking his head. And I'm thinking, okay, is that good? Shaking his head, no. Is that good? He goes, well, something's wrong. I said, well, what's the number? He said, it's 4.3%. I said, oh, then that's better. Yeah, but it's just not. Oh, he looks at me and goes, well, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're still not diabetic. I said, oh, that's okay, but the number's good. That means I'm doing good, though. He goes, yeah, you're doing good, but eventually you'll have to go back on the insulin because what you're going through, Dwayne, is known as the honeymoon period. Now, let's see. I said, I've been married once. And that honeymoon, and his honeymoon, I don't think I didn't understand I'm on a honeymoon. But he did say he felt that, well, the disease will come back stronger than ever. And it usually takes 3 to 6 months. It will be 4 years, March the 20th, when I first was diagnosed. So we're still counting.